You know, I came to get a babe cut.
You came to the right place.
Do you still doing those?
Oh yeah.
All right. My wife doesn't, you know, call me a babe too often anymore, so I need you to help me out there.
Yeah.
Well, how things been going, man?
They're going, still going. You know, still waiting for, you know, all this stuff to clear out. It's still not cleared out.
You still dealing with all that stuff?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, she put it. What she did is she pulled it out of, you know, the Supreme Court. This is what I don't understand. The Supreme Court came back and just demolished her.
Yeah.
For what she'd been doing.
7-0.
7-0 and 5-4 and then 4-5-3 or whatever it was. It was, you know.
Yeah.
But it demolished her 3 different times. So she is still in violation as far as I'm concerned.
But now she's using the health department.
Well, the health department is under her.
I know.
So all she's done is say, well, okay, but it's still under her disobeying the orders from the Supreme Court, as far as I can see.
That's what it seems like. That's what it seems like.
Seems like, yeah. But I'm not, you know, not a lawyer, so. But that's what it seems like.
Well, when this all happened back mid-March, when they first made the first stay-at-home orders and closed pretty much everything, right, except for what was deemed essential. You did close for a little bit, right? Like 2 weeks.
I closed from March, around the 20th of March to May 4th.
Okay, so you were closed for quite a while.
I was closed. Yeah. Well, she said it was going to be 2 weeks.
Yeah, right.
And then she took another 2. Well, then that was when I said, you know, when the legislators told her that her assignment was
couldn't
over,
get extended, right?
And they weren't going to extend it. Then I said, well, now you're in violation of the law, not me.
Yeah.
You don't make laws.
Correct.
The legislatures make laws, and they told you that you are out of order. So she hung her hat on a nail. It was nailed into nothing.
Right. Right. So you basically decided she was out of line, not you any longer.
No.
You decided it's time for me to open up.
Time for me to open up. Yeah, I mean illegally, as the Supreme Court came back and said that it was. Yeah, I mean this poison fruit, you know, that she's kind of got involved with everything that she did. 180 different executive
almost 200
orders.
and yeah.
That were all hung her hat on a nail. It was nailed into nothing.
And then eventually they were all deemed unlawful.
Unlawful.
And all of them were rescinded. Every single one. Matter of fact, if you go on the Michigan governor's website right now, you can click on a link that says executive orders, and there are 0. And it says on there a statement, all executive orders from April 30th to date have been rescinded by the Supreme Court. But now, of course, they're using, you know, the health department,
But she
which
is
part of the
still,
executive
she's
branch.
still in charge of that.
Right.
It isn't like they were a separate entity that, you know, she's still doing it.
Exactly. She's still directing them. Well, I just want to ask, you know, obviously, you know, for people that are listening right now, just kind of take us back real quick. When you decided to make the decision, when nobody else really was, to stand up and open up, what kind of made you think that you could do that, number one, and that you were doing the right thing?
Well, I have a kind of a new little mantra that I have here. It says, I would rather appear a little reckless, let people think I'm a little crazy, push the edge a little hard, and err on the side of being a rascal, than ever wander too close to the walk of cowards.
That's good.
I could not do a cowardly act. Could I find a way that I could do a cowardly act? I just couldn't do it. I couldn't.
Is that a Karl Manke original, or is that somebody else?
No, that came out of a book called Rascals.
Oh.
And it's one of my clients up in Saginaw. He's a German guy, and he brought that into me. He says, I know this guy reminds me of you. He says, I'm going to bring this book in. You're going to, you know, so he brought this book in. And I've done everything but, you know, I've underlined about half the book.
Wow.
But it's a book that, you know, and that very much in tune with this right here. This is kind of maybe the tune of that book. It's kind of the tenor of it.
So, okay, so you decide to open up. Tell me a little bit about what's going through your mind the day you decided to come in here, knowing that it might not be a popular decision, but you just said, I'm going to do it. What was going through your mind?
Oh, I thought I was going to jail. I was convinced that I was going to jail. So the day before, it was on a Sunday, and I would go in the bathroom and lock the door and practice being in a confined area beyond my comfort zone.
Wow.
So I was convinced that I was going to go to jail. My wife and I had talked about, well, you know, we may have to get an attorney. So we had some lots up north that I thought, well, maybe I could sell one of these lots off and pay for an attorney or something of this sort. You know, so I was prepared in so many different ways to realize that I was in something that was going to be pretty deep. I was aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that I wasn't afraid. I was. I mean, I think sometimes courage is something that comes if you work through it. But it's, the only reason there's such a word as courage is because you had to be fearful in order to be courageous. I was fearful. Mm-hmm. I was fearful. I thought, you know, they're going to destroy me. They're going to take my business. They're going to, you know, they're going to do everything they can. And I was convinced that I was going to fight back. And I prayed that serenity prayer all the way to work. God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, and the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I screamed that prayer at myself,
Yeah.
all the way here. Manke's, thank you. Yeah, bye.
All right, so what happens then? You come in on that first day.
I came in that first day.
Yeah, you're convinced that you're going to jail, but
was
you're going to
convinced.
stand up because why?
I was going to stand up because I was in the right. I wasn't breaking the law. I wasn't being a scufflaw.
So how do you compare? How do you compare the fear of going to jail with the fear of losing your business or your life's work? I mean,
you know, they're incremental. They kind of overlap with one another, but they're incremental. I mean, one is one, and another's another, and you know, these things keep banging around inside your head, like boing, boing, boing. You know, you're gonna lose your license, boing. You're gonna go to jail, boing. You're gonna lose your business, boing. You're gonna have an income. You're not gonna have an income, boing. I mean, all this stuff is boinging around inside of my head.
And certainly concern about public backlash, I'm sure, was also, you know, in your mind. Well, so let me ask you.
Public backlash, I wasn't concerned with that.
Okay.
I wasn't concerned with the public backlash. I knew that the public would be on one side or the other of this thing. I came in here not expecting to have any support at all. Mm-hmm. I really didn't. I knew my clients would want haircuts.
But you got a lot of support.
I got more support than I ever even dreamed of. I can't even imagine that.
I mean, for those who are listening who aren't familiar with the story, which is not very many people, but refresh everyone what happened. I mean, over the next couple of weeks, what happened with, you know, your business and people showing their support? What kind of things did you see?
Well, the next day after this when I initially opened, everything went well that day. You know, I thought, oh, this isn't too bad. But I had made that statement. You know, somebody asked me if what I was going to do, what would make me close, and I said, well, it'll be either I'll go out in handcuffs or if Jesus comes. You know, so I made that comment that was how I would close under those conditions. Well, the next day, I was about an hour into work, and I was cutting a head of hair, and I glanced up over at my door, and there stands one of the sheriff deputies. I won't mention his name, but I thought, okay,
Here it goes.
I'm going to jail. I'm going out in handcuffs today. He says, Carl, look at me. I turned and I did one of these. I looked at him. He says, I love you. And turned around, walked out the door, and got in his car and drove off. I knew then that I had a level of support that I didn't realize that I had.
Yeah.
That was new, because I thought all the police, you know, they were going to all be against me. You know, they're law enforcement officers. They're going to have to enforce whatever this governor says is the law.
Yeah.
And they bucked against that over here. You know, that wasn't the law. They also agreed that this was not the law. That this was you know, that she was acting outside of the law, outside of her assignment as governor.
Well, so then I remember, I mean, I was in and out over those next couple of weeks, and there were scores of people outside your building for the next several weeks. People coming from all over the state,
All over the country.
all over the country to get a haircut from Karl the Barber. And I remember sitting here one night and a veteran coming in and just telling you it was an honor just to sit in your chair. He had come from a long ways away.
Oh.
And you've had news outlets from all over the world come to talk to you about what happened. And so did you ever, I mean, so the support that was outpoured was far more than anyone could have ever anticipated.
I never, listen, I could stand in front of that window there on any given day and watch the cars go by, and I don't know, maybe every 100th car or something out of the 40-some thousand that go through, I might have known somebody, wave at them or something. I was as famous as I wanted to be.
Right, you just wanted to cut hair.
I just wanted to cut hair. That's why I came back to work. I just wanted to go back to work. I didn't want to be a spokesman for any group. I didn't want to, you know, campaign for any office. I just wanted to go back to work. I just wanted to run my barber shop. I've done it. I'm in my 60th year of cutting hair.
Well, I remember I offered you an opportunity to do a speaking engagement of several thousand people and sell some books, and you said, I can't do that, I gotta cut hair. So I mean, it was pretty obvious to me that you really just wanted to go back to work.
I just want to go back to
do what
work.
you were doing. And so after all that happened, I mean, obviously there were some people that didn't care for what you were doing, that were upset about it, but I think there were far more people that were inspired by what was happening.
Many more.
I mean, you've told me times about, you know, letters you've gotten and phone calls and emails you've gotten, and, you know, people started different GoFundMes and all of these different things to try to just show their love and support. And so after all that, I mean, was there ever a point where you had to close after that?
No.
Never closed?
Well, I closed, I think, we had an attorney meeting on a Saturday or something.
But you never closed the business down?
No, I never closed up.
So they came in, they gave you fines?
Oh yeah, they came in and charged me they were going to charge me $7,500 a day, plus $1,000 a haircut. And that was for, I don't know, 27 days that I was without a license.
Yeah, so
she pulled my license,
pulled your
21
license.
days or 20 some days. I can't recall what.
Pulled your
exactly
license,
the numbers
fined you. Did you ever pay any of those fines?
No. That was all, you know, that was part of that nail that she pounded into nothing.
So you didn't have to pay one of those fines?
No.
Did you get your license back?
I got my license back. Now they're trying to take it again.
Okay, during all of that, did you ever have a COVID case that was traced back to Karl Manke's barbershop?
No, from my understanding was that our Governor Whitmer had employed a contact tracing company.
Yeah.
And the rumor was that from what I'm not a computer guy, but somebody else did kind of a reverse tracing, I guess, and found that they had contact traced something like 3,000 people through this shop during that period of time and found nothing. Nothing, not zero, not one, it was.
Well, especially back in those days, I mean, you were just doing what you needed to do, and well, let me ask you this. So okay, fines come, license pulled, then it goes to court. You get David Coleman stepped in to help, great attorney here in the state of Michigan, and it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. And what did the Supreme Court ultimately say?
Well, they came back initially with a 7-0 against the governor that she had. She worked outside of the Constitution, and then and the charge was against her is that we follow the rule of law, not hysteria.
Right.
And they charged her with being hysterical.
And the Michigan Constitution says that a executive can declare a state of emergency in which she can make executive powers for 28 days without legislative approval.
Yeah.
After the 28 days, which everybody obeyed during that first 28 days, but after the 28 days, she refused to work with the legislature.
Refused.
And they said, okay, no more unless you work with us. She refused, and that's what the Supreme Court ruled was unconstitutional.
That was when the Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional?
And then a month or two later, they ruled again 5-4 that this 1945 law that she was trying to follow was invalid because it was changed in the 70s to say that. So basically, they rescinded every single order.
Every order. There's 1945 and then 1976, That was 3 that the Supreme Court came back on. That was the 3rd one.
Yeah.
The first one was, you know, giving me my license back, and then 2 more. Well, now she's still trying to take my license, so, you know, it's a...
Well, let's talk about the newest order. Happened 3 weeks ago. She said we're going to take a 3-week pause to save lives. Cases are on the rise. Of course, if you look at the data, deaths are not up, but cases are way up. They're doing 500+% more testing than they were doing back in April. So of course, cases are going to be up, but the hospitalizations are down and the deaths are down. Although there are a lot more people getting sick right now because it's flu season. But I want to talk about the latest order. If you notice her latest order that came out 3 weeks ago and that she just extended yesterday for another 2 weeks up until December 20th, did you notice that there was nothing in those executive orders about barbershops or salons?
Yeah.
Do you think that you had anything to do with that, Karl?
Listen, I'm not going to assume anything, but I know this, that I became a worm in her head.
Yeah.
I know that. I know that she knows that I will never back down. I will never back down on any, you know, as long as if it's governing, okay, that's something. If you govern, and when you govern, you make sure that all of the privileges that are given to us in our Constitution are being distributed among the citizens. But if you rule, then you jump over that and decide that you're going to go beyond and above and without the Constitution. You become a ruler. I'll be governed,
Yeah.
but I'll never be ruled.
Well, and she literally, I mean, there was a lot of industries affected by this last order, but nothing about barbershops or salons. Well, let me ask you, do you think, in any part of your heart, do you think that Governor Whitmer is just trying to save lives?
You know, I don't know what's in her head. From her behavior, the behavior is consistent with New York and California and a few other Democrat states. It's almost like it's a symbolic compliance. Why anybody would even imagine, a governor would even imagine, or a government or anybody would imagine that they can control a virus is beyond me. It's almost as though they feel as though that, you know, that if we give them that incremental piece of power to control our lives in this area, that there's other areas. See, the natural inclination for governments, all governments across the world, including ours, is to become oppressive. That's why we have a Second Amendment. That Second Amendment was when our founding fathers discovered that they were sending emissaries over here to intimidate the colonists by the boatloads, old King George. When they set this thing up, that Second Amendment, arming citizens,
A well-regulated militia.
was to intimidate those who thought they could go beyond our Constitution. That's why that amendment was put in there. It was to intimidate them. Never to have ever, this is the first time in world history that we've ever armed citizens like we do here. Switzerland has a law there that they arm their citizens too, but not like we do here. You know, our citizens here, and when they go over to Lansing, I don't particularly have thought one way or another about whether these militia groups should be doing what they're doing. I may like it or I may not like it. I'll go to the gates of hell with them, though. You know, honestly, that's their right to bear arms.
Yeah.
Now, I may not like it. Right. Yeah. I may or may not like it, but our Constitution is such that we don't pick and choose which amendments we're going to support. We support the whole thing.
Well, and the Constitution was set up with 3 branches of government.
Three branches of government.
Protect against one person ruling over many.
No.
And, you know, Governor Whitmer, for the last 9 months, has refused to work with either of the other branches of government. I mean, she's had to work with the judicial branch, but that wasn't really by her choice. Yeah. I talk to a lot of business owners right now. Several of them said 3 weeks ago, I'm going to give her this 3 weeks, but if it goes past this 3 weeks, I'm opening back up. And now I'm talking to a lot of those same business owners that just are not sure if they should. They feel a lot of different things. I'm hearing, number one, it's not the compassionate thing to do to worry about my business over saving lives. Or they'll say, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my license, because a lot of them are saying they're far more afraid of the health department than they ever were of the governor. So they're afraid they're going to get their licenses pulled. Some of them are afraid they're going to get to go to jail. Some of them are afraid that they're just going to be publicly scrutinized, and it will be far more detrimental on their business than just closing. And so what would you say to encourage these people that are probably having a similar thoughts to what you had before you decided, and just are not willing to open up and go against the grain?
We have right now, this Fauci is, what is
Fauci.
it? Fauci. He's a full-blown neurotic in my estimation. And he's making a neurotic out of the rest of our country. At least trying to. If the standard for me caring about you can be brought down to some stupid mask that has absolutely nothing to do with preventing COVID virus. There isn't one mask. If there was a mask that prevented the virus from going through it, it would be you couldn't breathe through it.
Yeah.
So they build these masks so that you can breathe through them. But it's like putting a chain link fence across the window to keep mosquitoes out. So these masks, if anybody holds them as a standard of whether I care about saving lives, the only way that our lives are going to be saved is if we get a vaccine. It isn't going to be through all this government tightening and all that crap. Almost 100%, I'd say almost 100% of the people that have gotten COVID virus wear a mask.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if this was the standard to keep us, so it's the neuroses of this is, the more neurotic behavior is that if we keep tightening up and tightening up and tightening up and tightening up and putting everybody back in their basements, we'll stop the world, we'll stop the virus. The virus is still there waiting. That virus is not going to go away due to any of this stuff. So the vaccine comes out, okay, then we have that's something else. But all this other crap in between, in the meantime, is just fluff. It's government BS.
Overreach.
Overreach, overreach, overreach. It's a frustration of not having the God power to be able to stop a virus.
Yeah.
It's almost like a God complex,
So then what do you tell the business owner like you? And obviously people need to be free to make their own decision, but what would you say to a business owner that is just afraid of all of the things we mentioned about to open up their business? They're afraid that they're going to lose it, but they're more afraid to open it up against the orders because of loss of license, loss of public.
Each person is going to have to weigh what they're willing to spend for freedom. I was willing to put it all on the line. I had no idea what was going to happen. I just knew that I was not going to give up. I knew that I was not going to give up. Trust God. It's what I came down to.
Yeah.
And what it amounted to. You remember that little poem with footprints in the sand?
Yeah.
That's been me. I mean, I came in here full of fear, but still, nevertheless, I'm going to fight through this. God help me get through this. God grant me the serenity to accept those things I can't change, but courage to change those things that I can't. That became my mantra, my prayer. And it still is. I still have fear. My license is still hanging there.
Right.
What am I going to have to do? How much am I going to lose? All right, I may lose everything. I may lose it all. But I'm not going to, I can't lose me in this. I cannot be a coward in this and say, well, all right, I sold out. Okay, well, I guess I was just being a little hasty. Oh, I guess the governor was right. Oh, I guess I've just been kind of a recalcitrant here. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. I know I'm standing on what is the Constitution, on our freedoms. I know I'm standing on that. I know to some degree, when I don't care who you are, You go into the armed services, you raise your hand and swear to you're going to uphold the Constitution. You become a public official, you raise your hand, swear you're going to uphold the Constitution. Obviously, we consider that as a pretty important document.
Sure.
Some type of a contract between us and God as a government. You know, so I look at that, it's not the Bible, but I look at that as being a contract someplace along the line with myself and God. So I'm going to uphold that. I'm going to fight for that Constitution.
Yeah.
And I may lose it all. I have
So what's the solution? I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me while you cut my hair. We always talk, but you know, in your estimation, what's the solution to all this?
The solution is that stand up. Don't be a coward. It may cost you something, but life's not over. We have an opportunity to rebuild again. You know, it isn't ended. You know, I'm 70, what the hell am I? I'm 78. I'm 78 now. I was 77 when all this stuff started.
I remember.
Yeah, now I'm 78.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a few months, but so, you know, I mean, I'm going to start over again. I'm not going to quit.
Yeah.
You know, as long as I have life left in me, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. This is, it's too important to us as a nation and as a people to not stand up. I know what Rosa Parks felt like when she sat down. She'd had it with all the nonsense. And the difference was that I stood up. And I was sick of all the nonsense, of all the illegal political BS. So I know how she felt in that sense. And I'm willing to do the same as she did. I'm willing to stand up as long as it takes for you to stand up. And if you're going to put me down, it'll be the day Jesus comes or you take me out of here in handcuffs, one or the other.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. And I got to say, the babe cut looks great. Well, I'll let you know tonight if the wife approves.
Yeah, all right. She goes, wow.
Yeah.
See if you get the wow factor.
I get the wow, yeah. I said the other day, I have 6 kids, and Carl's probably responsible for at least 2 of them.
Yeah. I'm expanding the population.
That's right. Be fruitful and multiply. One haircut at a time.
Yeah. There you go. Good.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate
thank
it,
you.
as always. Give you the shake hand, and I'll give you that. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Keep up the fight, and we'll see you next time.
Okay. Thank you very kindly. George.